They're the most powerful, the most feared, and the most secretive crime syndicate in the world. More dangerous than the Sicilian Mafia, richer than the Mexican cartels, and untouchable by law enforcement for over a century. From their humble beginnings in the isolated hills of Calabria to building a multi-billion-dollar empire, the Ndrangheta has mastered the art of staying hidden. Their weapon? Silence, loyalty, and absolute control. Today, we expose the rise, the empire, and the shocking downfall of the Ndrangheta, Italy's most untouchable criminal syndicate. Chapter 1. Born in Blood. The origins of the Ndrangheta in the desolate hills of Calabria, Italy, where the land is as ruthless as the men who inhabit it. A secret brotherhood was born. Unlike the Sicilian Mafia, which emerged from a blend of aristocrats and outlaws, the Ndrangheta was forged from something far more primal: poverty, desperation, and survival. The name Ndrangheta comes from the Greek word Ndrangheta, meaning heroism and virtue. But this was no noble order. From the beginning, the Ndrangheta followed 3 golden rules: loyalty to blood above all else. Betrayal means death. Secrets must stay within the family forever. For centuries, the people of Calabria were oppressed, ignored, and forced to fend for themselves. The mountains provided protection from invaders, but they also bred lawlessness. With no help from the government, locals turned to a different kind of authority: the mafia. These were not just criminals. They were enforcers, protectors, and executioners. The first Ndrangheta families emerged as bandits turned power brokers, controlling land, resources, and the fate of those who lived under them. The government tried to crush them, but every crackdown only made them stronger. Unlike the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, which had a structured hierarchy, the Ndrangheta was built like a hydra. Cut off one head, and another would take its place. And so, in the shadows of history, the most untouchable mafia in the world was born. Chapter 2. Family is everything. Why the Ndrangheta is untouchable. The Ndrangheta is not just a mafia. It is a family, an unbreakable bloodline that stretches back generations. Unlike the Sicilian Mafia, Cosa Nostra, or the Neapolitan Camorra, the Ndrangheta is almost impossible to infiltrate. Why? Because outsiders are never allowed in. Every member is born into the family. Every betrayal is personal. Every secret is passed down through generations. Where other mafias recruit from the streets, the Ndrangheta recruits from the cradle. From the moment a child is born into a Ndrangheta family, their fate is sealed. In most criminal organizations, members can turn informant, pentito, to save themselves. But for a Ndrangheta member, betraying the family is like betraying their own blood. If a member talks, their entire family pays the price. If someone leaves, they vanish forever. If a member is killed, revenge is swift and merciless. This ironclad loyalty has made the Ndrangheta the most difficult mafia to dismantle. Even when Italian authorities launched massive crackdowns, they struggled to make arrests stick. Witnesses refused to testify, evidence disappeared, and jurors were too afraid to convict. The government's greatest weapon against the Sicilian Mafia was turning members into informants. But against the Ndrangheta, that strategy failed. Because how do you make a man betray his own blood? This is why the Ndrangheta is called the mafia that cannot be touched. And in the shadows of this secret empire, a monstrous machine was growing. One that would soon control the global drug trade. Chapter 3. The billion-dollar drug empire. Ndrangheta's global reign. The Ndrangheta isn't just another mafia. They're the kings of the global drug trade. While the Sicilian Mafia lost its grip and the Camorra turned reckless, the Ndrangheta played the long game, silently becoming the world's most powerful drug traffickers. Their specialty? Cocaine. For decades, the Ndrangheta formed direct partnerships with Colombian and Mexican cartels, cutting out middlemen and securing the best prices. They don't just buy drugs, they own the supply chain. From Colombian jungles to Brazilian ports, from West African smuggling routes to European cities, from Calabrian villages to Wall Street bank accounts. Every kilo of cocaine that enters Europe, at least 80% passes through their hands. The profits are staggering. Estimates suggest the Ndrangheta earns over $60 billion a year, more than McDonald's and Deutsche Bank combined. But here's the real genius. They don't flaunt their wealth like gangsters in movies. No flashy suits, no gold chains, no social media. Instead, they reinvest everything. Hotels, real estate, construction companies, even banks. By the time law enforcement catches up, the money is clean, impossible to trace. But power comes at a cost, and in the shadows, betrayals are brewing. Chapter 4. Infamous bosses and brutal betrayals to rule the Ndrangheta. You don't just need power. You need patience, fear, and the loyalty of men who would rather die than betray you. Few understood this better than Domenico Appetisano, the mastermind who turned the Ndrangheta into a global empire. Unlike the flashy Sicilian bosses, Appetisano was invisible. Unlike the violent Camorra leaders, he avoided attention. His weapon? Secrecy, strategy, silence. Under his leadership, the Ndrangheta perfected the art of criminal enterprise. Politics, judges, police, and even mayors were in their pocket. Banks, they didn't launder money through fake companies. They owned the companies. Murder, if you crossed them, you didn't just die. Your entire bloodline vanished. But even the most powerful crime bosses face one enemy. They can't escape betrayal. The assassination that changed everything that man was Giuseppe, the lawyer Nerda, a powerful Ndrangheta figure. His murder wasn't random. It was a message. A war was brewing inside the organization. Even among blood relatives, loyalty had limits. Some bosses wanted more power. Some wanted less heat from the police. And some wanted revenge. What followed was a brutal purge. Hitmen disguised as police, cousins betraying cousins, entire families wiped out in a single night. The Ndrangheta had survived wars, betrayals, and police crackdowns before. But this time, they faced a new threat. The government was finally ready to strike back. Chapter 5. Law enforcement's war on the Ndrangheta. For over 150 years, the Ndrangheta was untouchable. Unlike the Sicilian Mafia, they avoided media attention. Unlike the Camorra, they kept their violence in the shadows. They were ghosts. But in 2019, everything changed. The Italian government launched the largest mafia trial in modern history. Over 300 arrests, 2,500 hours of wiretaps. A courtroom built like a fortress to hold all the criminals. The charges? Murder, drug trafficking, extortion, corruption at the highest levels of politics and business. This trial was bigger than anything Italy had seen since the 1980s, when Judge Giovanni Falcone took down the Sicilian Mafia. But unlike back then, this time, the Ndrangheta's own men were talking. The unthinkable. Ndrangheta members turn informants, former Ndrangheta boss. I swear, I had no choice. They would have killed me and my family. For the first time in history, high-ranking Ndrangheta members broke the code of silence. Luigi Mancuso, once a powerful Ndrangheta boss, was accused of running a drug empire worth billions. Giovanni Arena, a feared hitman, revealed details of assassinations that had gone unsolved for decades. Dozens of corrupt politicians, businessmen, and police officers were exposed as part of the organization. The beginning of the end? Many believe this was the final blow to the Ndrangheta. But was it? Despite the historic trial, the Ndrangheta remains the wealthiest crime syndicate in the world. They still control 80% of Europe's cocaine market. They still influence politicians and businesses. And most importantly, they still operate in absolute secrecy. As long as loyalty, fear, and money remain stronger than the law, then Ndrangheta will never truly die. Chapter 6. The global reach of the Ndrangheta. The Ndrangheta isn't just an Italian problem. It's a global empire. With $50 billion in annual revenue, they control the cocaine trade in Europe, launder money through international banks, and influence governments across the world. From South America to Australia, from Germany to the United States, their power stretches far beyond the mountains of Calabria. How did they achieve this? By being invisible. The Ndrangheta in North America, the Ndrangheta has controlled Canada's underworld for decades. The Saderno Group and Ndrangheta faction dominates Toronto's drug market. Montreal's ports serve as gateways for cocaine shipments from South America. Their influence even reaches New York, where they cooperate with the remnants of the American Mafia. Even FBI investigations have found that the Ndrangheta runs operations in New York, Florida, and California. But despite arrests, their structure makes them impossible to destroy. A shadow over Europe, most people think of the Mafia as violent thugs. The Ndrangheta? They wear suits and own corporations. Germany is a major hub for their money laundering. They own hotels, restaurants, and real estate, hiding billions in legitimate businesses. Spain and the Netherlands are key cocaine entry points. Even Switzerland's banks have been used to clean dirty money. This isn't just an Italian problem anymore. This is a global network. The final frontier, Australia and South America. Few people know this, but Australia is one of the Ndrangheta's biggest markets. They control 70% of the country's cocaine imp. The final frontier, Australia and South America. Few people know this, but Australia is one of the Ndrangheta's biggest markets. They control 70% of the country's cocaine imports. Their alliances with outlaw biker gangs make them untouchable. They use legitimate companies to move billions of dollars without suspicion. And in South America, they deal directly with the cartels, buying cocaine at the source and moving it worldwide. Why can't they be stopped? Despite massive arrests, global investigations, and billions spent, the Ndrangheta only grows stronger. Why? Because they don't function like a normal crime syndicate. They don't have a central leader. They don't rely on flashy violence. They are family-based, which makes betrayal almost impossible. Chapter 7. The final lesson. Can the Ndrangheta ever be destroyed? For over 200 years, the Ndrangheta has survived every attempt to destroy it. Governments have launched mass arrests, undercover operations, and global crackdowns. Yet the organization remains more powerful than ever. Why? Because the Ndrangheta isn't just a criminal syndicate. It's a system built on blood ties, coded messages, and absolute silence. But can it ever be stopped? The Indestructible Mafia in 2021, one of the biggest trials in history, took place. Hundreds of members were arrested. But did it destroy the Ndrangheta? No, because the real power isn't in individuals, it's in the structure. Unlike the Sicilian Mafia, the Ndrangheta has no single leader. Killing one boss does nothing. Unlike the cartels, they don't rely on public violence. They stay in the shadows. And unlike other mafias, they don't recruit outsiders. It's all family, ensuring no one talks, no one betrays. This is why no government has ever been able to destroy them. The billions they control, the true power of the Ndrangheta isn't in their guns. It's in their money. $50 billion annually makes them one of the richest crime syndicates in history. They own businesses, politicians, and banks across Europe. They invest in legitimate industries. So even if one operation is shut down, their wealth remains intact. The future of organized crime is evolving. The Ndrangheta no longer just deals in drugs and extortion. They have moved into cryptocurrency money laundering, cybercrime, and online fraud, real estate, and luxury markets. And as technology advances, so do their methods. Can they ever be stopped? Governments are fighting back. Undercover operations have exposed their global networks. Mass trials have put thousands behind bars. Anti-mafia laws are being strengthened across Europe. But as long as poverty, corruption, and loyalty to family remain strong, then Ndrangheta will survive. Because their greatest strength isn't violence, it's invisibility. The Ndrangheta isn't a myth. It's a real, unstoppable force operating in plain sight. Their empire stretches across continents, industries, and generations. Governments may fight them, but the question remains, can the world ever defeat an enemy it can't see? What do you think? Can the Ndrangheta ever be stopped? Or will they remain the world's most powerful crime syndicate forever? Let us know in the comments. If you found this deep dive fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking true crime stories.